All right, so today we're going to dive deep into Samsung.
Oh, yeah, Samsung.
It's a company most people know, at least by name, right?
For sure. I mean, who hasn't heard of their phones or TVs?
But I think a lot of folks might not realize just how far back their history goes.
Yeah, they weren't always the tech giant we know today.
Exactly, and that's what we're going to unpack in this deep dive.
Love it.
So we've got articles about their finances, like how much money they make, historical milestones from throughout their history.
Right, gotta have the numbers.
Yeah, and to add some extra layers, we've got 2 YouTube videos.
Okay, cool.
One lays out their brand story, how
Yeah.
they present themselves to the world.
Makes sense.
And the other goes into the Lee family, the dynasty behind Samsung.
So we get the business side and the family saga.
Right, because it's all connected.
Definitely.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty simple.
Lay it on me.
How did this South Korean company that started as a trading company in 1938,
1938.
become one of the biggest tech players on the planet?
It's a wild story. I'm excited to get into it.
Me too. So let's start at the very beginning with the man who started it all, Lee Byung-chul.
Okay, the OG Samsung.
He was born on February 12, 1910, in a place called Uri-young in South Korea.
Gotcha.
Now, this is kind of cool. One of the videos pointed this out.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
His birth home was in a spot that's considered super luckin', according to Korean geomancy.
Geomancy, what's that?
It's like this ancient system of reading the energy of the land, mountains, rivers, stuff like that.
Ah, like feng shui?
Kind of. And according to geomancy, the location of his home, with a river in front and mountains behind, meant it was destined for wealth and power.
Wow. So he was basically born under a lucky star.
Well, maybe not literally, but you get the idea.
Right, a good omen. Maybe that influenced his path,
It's interesting to think about. And on top of that auspicious location,
Yeah.
Lee Byung-chul came from a wealthy family. His parents were landowners, so he had a pretty comfortable upbringing.
Ah, so he already had a leg up starting out.
Exactly. And his education was interesting, too. He started with traditional Confucian studies.
Like the classics and stuff.
Yep. Then went to Susong Primary School in Seoul for a bit.
Okay.
He wasn't like the top student overall, but he was a whiz at math.
Makes sense. He ended up a business guy.
Right. That analytical mind was there early on.
I see it.
Then he made a kind of surprising move. He decided not to finish secondary school and went straight to Waseda University in Tokyo.
Tokyo. Wow, so he went to Japan for college.
Yeah, to study political economy.
Interesting. And how did he swing that financially?
Well, his brother's friend, Cho Hong-jae, helped him out.
Oh, okay.
And get this. Cho Hong-jae later founded the Hyosun Group.
No way. Another Korean chaebol.
Yep, small world, huh?
Crazy how these connections pop up.
It's like these future titans were already linked early on.
And, studying in Tokyo in the early 1900s must have been eye-opening for Lee Byung-chul.
Totally. Japan was way ahead of Korea industrially back then.
Sure.
And one of the videos said he took every chance he got to visit factories in Japan, learn how they did things.
Soaking it all in?
Yeah, even then he was like a sponge for business knowledge.
I see that.
Now, before Samsung came along, he had a few other businesses,
Oh, yeah.
and they didn't all go smoothly.
Well, nobody's a winner every time.
True. So he got a loan to expand his land holdings, but then the Sino-Japanese War happened.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he ended up going broke.
Ouch. Tough break.
But his dad stepped in, gave him 30,000 won to try again.
Wow, that's got to be a lot of money back then.
It was huge help. He also ran a company called Hosein Brewery for a while.
Interesting. So he had his ups and downs before hitting it big.
I think those early struggles taught him a lot.
Yeah, failures can be the best lessons sometimes.
So let's jump to the official start of Samsung. Samsung Trading Company was founded on March 1st, 1938.
Okay, that's the date everyone remembers.
It all began in Taegu, South Korea.
Gotcha.
And guess what the starting capital was that 30,000 won from his dad?
Coming full circle. I like it.
Which back then was about 27 US dollars.
Seriously, $27 to start a global empire.
It's wild, right?
Talk about bang for your buck.
So they started small trading stuff like dried fish, groceries, noodles.
Humble beginnings for sure.
With like 40 employees. Imagine that tiny team growing into what Samsung is now.
It blows my mind. And what about the name Samsung? I always wondered about that.
Oh yeah, it's meaningful.
Tell me.
Samsung means 3 stars in Korean.
3 stars, huh?
And it reflects Lee Byung-chul's vision for the company, something big, powerful, and long-lasting like stars.
I get it. Even the name was hinting at something huge.
Exactly. So after the Korean War in 1947, they moved their headquarters to Busan.
Busan, okay.
And this is when they started branching out beyond just trading.
Smart, gotta diversify.
Yeah, the first big move was into sugar refining. They founded a company called Shil-Jadang in 1953.
Sugar, huh? Interesting choice.
Well, it was a basic need, and back then people didn't really trust Korean-made products.
Ah, they thought imported stuff was better?
Right. But Shil-Jadang's sugar was actually good quality and way cheaper than imported sugar.
So they won people over with price and quality.
Exactly. And that helped South Korea rely less on imports, which was a big deal back then.
Makes sense.
Shil-Jadang eventually split off from Samsung in '93 and is now known as CJ Shil-Jadang.
Wow, so it became its own thing.
Yeah, and it shows how important it is for a company to understand what the market wants and needs and adapt to those.
Totally.
Then in 1954, they jumped into textiles.
From sugar to fabric, that's a big jump.
Right, they started Shalmajik, which became the biggest woolen mill in Korea.
No way.
Yep, and they launched their own fabric brand, Golden Tex.
Catchy name.
I know, right? But again, they had to overcome that skepticism about Korean-made goods.
So it's same problem, different industry.
Yep, but they did. Golden Tex was good quality and affordable, and it became super popular.
So popular, that.
So popular that in 1958, the government banned imported worsted wool.
Whoa, they were a threat to the imports.
Basically, Samsung was helping South Korea build its own industries.
That's huge.
And it's after these successes with Shil-Jadang and Shalmajik that Lee Byung-chul really started getting called a chaebol.
A chaebol, explain that one for our listeners.
Basically, it's a big family-run conglomerate that has a ton of power and influence in South Korea.
Ah, so like a super powerful business dynasty.
Exactly, and Samsung was becoming the prime example.
Wow.
And the diversification just kept going through the 60s. They got into food processing, insurance securities, retail, even media.
Media, like newspapers and TV.
Yeah, they started Radio Seoul and Tungyang television broadcast, both in 1964.
Wow, busy year.
Those eventually merged to form TBC.
Okay.
And in '65, they launched the Jongang Ilbo newspaper.
So they were everywhere.
It's interesting because these media outlets initially gave Samsung pretty favorable coverage.
Ah, so they had their own PR machine.
Kind of, but later on, those media arms were separated from Samsung.
Oh, so they became independent.
Yeah, TBC got absorbed into the Korean broadcasting system KBS in 1980, and Jongang Ilbo became independent in '99.
I see, so they distanced themselves from the media eventually.
Exactly, which probably helped their image in the long run.
Makes sense.
Now let's talk about what was probably the most important turning point for Samsung.
Okay, me with it.
Their move into electronics in the late 60s.
Ah, that's when they became the tech giant we know.
Yep, and one of the videos said that Lee Byung-chul got the idea from looking at how well the Japanese electronics industry was doing.
So back to Japan for inspiration.
Right, companies like Sanyo Electric were killing it, and he wanted a piece of that action.
Makes sense, but was everyone on board with this idea?
Not really. Actually,
Yeah.
some people were skeptical.
Really? Why?
Well, for one, Samsung had no experience in electronics.
That's a whole different ball game.
And there were already established players in Korea, like Gold Star, which is LG now.
Ah, so they weren't thrilled about competition.
Definitely. The video even told this story about how the founder of Gold Star, Koo In-hoi, gave Lee Byung-chul a hard time about it on the golf course.
Oh no, awkward.
Yeah, Lee Byung-chul was supposedly pretty embarrassed.
Ouch, business rivalries can get intense.
They can, but despite the doubts and the lack of experience, Lee Byung-chul went for it.
Gotta admire that.
So Samsung Electronics Industrial Co., Ltd., was born on January 13th, 1969.
A historic day.
And they actually planned to work with Sanyo Electric at first.
Oh, so they got help from the Japanese company they admired.
Yeah, Samsung owned 50%, Sanyo 40%, and Sumitomo Corporation the other 10%.
Interesting setup.
But even with the partnership, they had some early problems like quality control issues.
So the products weren't that great at first.
Yeah, it takes time to get everything right in a new industry, especially one as complex as electronics.
Makes sense. You got to learn as you go.
Exactly. And right around this time, something else happened that shook things up.
Oh, what was that?
In 1966, Lee Byung-chul had to step down from managing Samsung for a bit.
Wait, why?
It was because of a scandal involving the Korean Fertilizer Corporation, a company they'd founded in 1964.
Oh no, what happened?
They got caught smuggling saccharin.
Smuggling? That's serious.
It was a big deal. His second son, Lee Chang-hee, ended up taking the fall for it.
Wow, so it was a family affair.
Yeah, but Lee Byung-chul eventually came back to run Samsung Electronics.
So he couldn't stay away from the action for too long.
It seems like he really believed in this move into electronics,
Yeah,
even with all the drama.
I get it. He saw the potential.
Exactly. So moving into the 70s and 90s, things started changing in terms of leadership and tech.
Okay, what happened?
Lee Byung-chul's third son, Lee Kun-hee, was being groomed to take over.
Ah, so the succession plan was in motion.
Yep. Lee Kun-hee studied in Japan, and the U.S. even went to George Washington University.
Fancy.
And he had a wide range of interests, like cars and sports like wrestling and golf.
Wow, a well-rounded guy.
Yeah, and one of the videos made him seem like a really sharp observer, someone who could analyze things from different angles.
Sounds like a good leader.
And one of his big early moves was acquiring a small company called Korean Semiconductor in 1974.
Korean Semiconductor.
Yeah, back then the semiconductor business was super risky, expensive, but Lee Kun-hee saw the potential.
He was ahead of his time?
Totally. At first, even his dad, Lee Byung-chul, wasn't so sure about it.
Really? Why not?
Well, semiconductors need a ton of investment, and it takes a long time to make money.
So it was a gamble.
It was, but Lee Kun-hee was convinced.
And was he right?
Oh, yeah, big time.
Nice.
In 1983, Lee Byung-chul made a famous announcement in Tokyo.
Tokyo again, huh? Must be a lucky city for Samsung.
Maybe he said semiconductors were going to be a core focus for Samsung.
So he finally came around to his son's vision.
He did, and it paid off big time. They developed the 64K DRAM in 83, then the 256K DRAM in 84, and the 1M DRAM in 86.
Those are like computer brain stuff, right?
Yeah, they're memory chips, and they were huge advancements back then.
So they went from nothing to leading the pack.
Pretty much, they lost a lot of money at first, but then they started dominating.
It's crazy how they could take such a risk and then come out on top.
It's about having a long-term vision and sticking with it, even when things are tough.
I see that.
So Lee Byung-chul passed away in November 1987, and Lee Kun-hee officially became chairman on December 1st.
Okay, so the next generation takes the reins.
And Lee Kun-hee had a big goal, make Samsung a truly world-class company.
Yeah, ambitious.
Yeah, he wasn't messing around. One of his first moves was to merge all the different branches of Samsung, like home appliances, semiconductors, mobile phones, all into one big Samsung Electronics.
So streamlining everything.
Exactly, making it more efficient and able to compete globally.
Smart move.
And then came a moment that really changed Samsung's culture.
Okay, I'm listening.
It was 1993, and Lee Kun-hee made what's called the Frankfurt Declaration.
The Frankfurt Declaration, dramatic.
He basically said they needed to change everything about Samsung except their wives and children.
Whoa, why such a drastic statement?
The story goes that he saw some Samsung TVs in a store, and they were displayed poorly. Some were even defective.
Oh no, embarrassing.
Totally. And on top of that, there was this internal report called the Fukuda Report that found a lot of design flaws in their products.
Ouch. So quality was a big issue.
And Lee Kun-hee was not happy about it.
Makes sense.
So he declared this new focus on quality over quantity.
A total shift in mindset.
They even introduced this line stop policy, where any worker could stop the entire production line if they spotted a quality problem.
Wow, so they empowered the workers to ensure equality?
Exactly. It's a huge cultural shift, and it paid off big time.
It's amazing how one leader's vision can have such a big impact.
Totally. And it was especially important as they started going after the global market.
You're right. They needed a good reputation.
And this is when they really got serious about mobile phones. They created the AnyCall brand.
AnyCall, I remember that.
But at first, they had a lot of quality complaints with AnyCall phones.
Oh no, so they were repeating old mistakes.
Kind of, but this time they did something drastic to show they were serious about quality.
Okay, what did they do?
They held this huge public event called the AnyCall burning ceremony in 1995.
The AnyCall burning ceremony.
Yeah, they literally destroyed a ton of their own defective phones.
Oh, talk about a statement.
It was a powerful way to show they were committed to quality.
And did it work?
It did. Just a year later, AnyCall became the top mobile phone brand in South Korea, beating Motorola.
No way they bounced back that fast.
Yeah, they had over 50% of the market share.
That's incredible.
And they were innovating like crazy. In 1996, they released the world's first CDMA mobile phone.
CDMA?
It's a type of mobile technology.
Gotcha.
And then in 97, they made the SCH-200F, the lightest phone at the time.
So they were on a roll.
They also experimented with MP3 phones, watch phones, TV phones, camera phones, all this cool stuff.
So always pushing the boundaries.
Always.
Now, what about their car thing? I heard Samsung tried to make cars.
They did. It's a less successful chapter in their story.
Really? Tell me about it.
So in 1995, they started Samsung Motors with a goal to make the best cars in the world.
Ambitious.
They partnered with Nissan for the tech.
Oh, okay, so they had help.
But then the Asian financial crisis hit in 97.
Oh, no bad timing.
It really hurt them. And in 2000, they ended up forming Renault Samsung Motors.
Ah, so they basically had to give up control.
Pretty much, it shows that even Samsung isn't immune to economic forces.
Yeah, even giants can stumble.
And that brings us to the 2000s and the Samsung we know today.
The global tech powerhouse.
Exactly. And a big part of that is their mobile phone business, particularly the Galaxy series.
The Galaxy, yes, the iPhone competitor.
They started with the Galaxy A, then the Galaxy S in 2010, and they've been going head-to-head with Apple ever since.
And they've come a long way with the Galaxy, haven't they?
Oh, yeah. Bigger screens, the S Pen, and the Note series LTE, then 5G. They keep pushing the limits.
Yeah, it's like every year there's a new Galaxy with something even crazier.
Right, and the Galaxy S series is a perfect example of how they innovate.
Tell me more.
They had the S2 and S3, which made them a serious player in the Android world.
Okay.
Then the S4 with water resistance, fingerprint sensors.
Fancy features.
Then the S6 Edge with the curved screen and Samsung Pay.
I remember that one. It was a big deal.
Yeah, and even when they messed up, like with the Note 7 battery problems.
Oh, yeah, that was a disaster.
It was. But they learned from it and came back stronger.
That's important.
They also did the S8 with the Infinity O display and then the Galaxy Fold, the foldable phone.
So always trying new things.
Always. And their financial success is mind-blowing.
How much money are we talking?
In 2024, their revenue was about $231.5 billion.
Billion with a B.
With a B, their operating profit was around $25.15 billion.
That's insane.
They have the biggest market share in smartphones globally, consistently, over 20%.
Wow.
And they've been the #1 TV brand for 17 years in a row.
Unbelievable.
Plus, they make most of the world's memory chips. They're constantly innovating with things like DDR5 DRAM and 3nm process nodes.
Okay, I'm lost on the tech jargon, but it sounds impressive.
It is. They're involved in some of the most important parts of the tech world.
So they're truly a global giant.
They are, with offices, factories, research centers all over the planet.
And they've even built some crazy stuff outside of electronics, right?
Yeah, they built the Petronas Towers in Malaysia
Yeah.
and the Burj Khalifa in Dubai.
No way, the tallest building in the world.
The tallest building in the world, Samsung built it.
That's wild. I never would have guessed.
It just shows how diverse they are.
So they're not just phones and TVs, they do it all.
Pretty much.
Or,
But even with all this success, they have challenges.
oh, yeah? Like what?
Well, there were labor strikes in South Korea and India in 2024.
So even Samsung has to deal with labor issues.
Everyone does.
Okay.
And then there's the whole thing with leadership succession and legal problems surrounding the Lee family.
Right. Lee Jae-yong has had his share of trouble.
He has, and that whole saga shows that even with all this wealth and power, there's still a lot of scrutiny and complexity.
Yeah, nothing's ever simple at that level.
Nope. So wrapping this up,
Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
it has. Samsung went from a small trading company to a global tech leader. It's pretty inspiring.
It is. It shows that with the right vision and a lot of hard work, even the craziest dreams can come true.
Exactly. And I think there's some key lessons we can all learn from Samsung's story. First, you got to have a long-term vision, something to aim for, even if it seems impossible.
Right, gotta think big.
Then you got to be adaptable, ready to change course when things aren't working.
Like when they jumped into electronics, even though everyone doubted them.
Exactly. And you need strong leadership people who can make tough decisions and inspire their teams.
Like Lee Byung-chul and Lee Gun-hee.
And lastly, you have to accept that growth comes with challenges. There will be bumps in the road.
Yeah, like that whole car venture and the legal issues.
So it's not always going to be easy. But if you keep pushing forward, you can achieve amazing things.
That's a great takeaway.
So here's a final question for you listening. What do you think is next for Samsung?
Yeah, what crazy innovation are they going to come up with next?
What could disrupt their position or change their strategy in the next few decades?
It's going to be exciting to watch.
It is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Samsung.
Cheers!
See you next time.